Hey world, welcome to the Lighting Trade School Podcast, episode 1. I've got with me the 3 lighting amigos, aka the dipshit millionaires. We teach folks how to be a millionaire in outdoor lighting with one crew, one truck, $1 million. So I'll introduce, I got Nate Mullen. If you don't know Nate, he is the godfather of lighting. He is mine and Matt's mentor of lighting. He is also known as the Illuminator, also known as the Wizard of Lighting, aka Nader the Hater, and sometimes Nasty Nate. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
Hey man, I'm super excited to be here. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, so I hope everybody's going to get a lot of value out of this, and I would probably almost guarantee that. I'm kind of honored to be with my disciples, if you will, and I appreciate everything. They always pay attention, they learn, they have their own brain, and that's one of the things I think that people will appreciate, that we all will have a very logical approach to outdoor lighting with the same intention of going way beyond what people's expectations are and always creating a wow. So I think it's a super good opportunity for all of us to share all the things that we've taken, I don't know, collectively 50, 60 years here between all of us. And I think people will appreciate that. So I'll hand it over to you, Matt. And I'm really looking forward to meeting a lot of you guys out there, however we meet on these podcasts. So
if y'all don't know Captain Matt is a millionaire lighting amigo in the great state of New York, in the capital of New York. We call him Cap or Captain Matt or Outdoor Matt. Nate, when he orders drinks at a restaurant, calls him Captain Fruitcake Matt. Call him Matty with the fatty or Matt in the hat. Captain Matt.
I appreciate that.
Hey Shane, were you up all night thinking of these new code names?
This is just top of the dome. I got them in my head.
Wow. That's right. That's one of the things I love about Shane is it's the Ned Flanders of outdoor lighting. His jokes, his nicknames. He's in my phone as the Glow Daddy, which I know Nate loves to say and call him, but that's a whole different episode. Glad to be here. I'm excited. We started the lighting trade school. It's been a little over a year now, and it's exciting to finally launch this podcast with you guys.
Absolutely.
Do you want to tell them a little background of why we started the lighting trade school?
I will. So, Matt and I, have both been tutelaged by Nate and changed our life around for the better. Took us to, millionaire status here in the lighting game. I even remember meeting Nate. Pre-Nate, my light designs were pretty awful. I thought they looked great. Matt, the same. Since we kind of actually learned design and have spent 1,000 hours really close with Nate, we've taken things to a whole nother level. So Matt and I thought, well, why don't we bottle this up and make a lighting trade school, create something where we can take what Nate taught us to others around the world and create other dipshit lighting millionaires. Not that you guys are dipshits, but I can 100% tell you that Nate and Matt are dipshits. And they became a millionaire. So I know you guys can as well. So that's the purpose of the lighting trade school. We're just going to talk about lighting. We're going to talk about mistakes made and just kind of a little bit of design and install best practices. Today, I specifically want to get into Nate's 7 deadly sins of lighting. So we're going to make a series. This is series 1 on the 7 deadly sins. And we'll give you guys, if you're interested, a PDF right up on the 7 deadly sins. Really good to put in with your proposals and just to incorporate in all your designs. And we're going to cover the number 1 deadly sin. Matt, what is the number 1 deadly sin?
Glare. Glare is the number 1 killer of a lighting job.
So I would like to interject real quick back to you, Shane, if I could. I would like to say that I'm pretty proud of my first and maybe only award that I ever got in life, and that was in high school when they award best dresser, best most likely to exceed. I did get most likely to be the biggest dipshit. So I've kind of carried that title for a long time.
I don't think anyone will argue that.
That's easy to believe.
But I would like to at least add one thing, and I hope, I don't want to be boring here, all that stuff, but I would like to add my 2 cents or 98 cents, because if I'm going to give you 2 cents, that ain't worth a goddamn thing, if you know what I mean. I'll tell homeowners that when they want to throw their 2 cents, and I want 98 cents. I think the reason I was super excited about the lighting trade school, meaning that electrical is my background, being an electrician, electrical contractor, and there's mentorship programs you can go through union. Everybody knows that there's 4 years of apprenticeship, whether it's union or non-union, and you're mentored by journeymans, and there's structure. And every electrician in the United States follows a lot of the same rules, and it's all about safety. It's all about doing things correct, because there could be obviously fires involved, death, and some really bad consequences. Outdoor lighting, there is nothing. Everybody's super fractured. Nobody teaches the same thing. There is no unified body. There is no national electric code per se for outdoor lighting. So this was super exciting for me to be able to try to bind a lot of things together and start teaching things with uniformity, safety, structure, repeatability. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get involved, and I'm super happy. So anyway, Matt, I'm going to give it back to you for number one sin. Right?
Still glare. I just checked my notes.
There.
It doesn't change. I think Nate's probably said that at least 300 times. Number one deadly sin is glare.
And what, I'll jump in there. What is glare for those guys who maybe just starting out, or maybe they just don't even realize it's happening, right? When you look at the best ways, if you've ever done a lighting job and you go there at night to look, and they have their lights on their front porch, 99 times out of 100, those lights are what your eyes are drawn to. They're kind of blinding.
Is that glare?
It's got a little flashlight there. So that's glare. It just draws your eye to it. You lose everything else. It becomes the brightest spot, and it hurts your eyes. And, the science behind it, who knows, besides the fact that it hurts your eyes, and no one likes their eyes hurt. So, even I always joke with my clients when they have those lights on their front porch. I said, my goal is to make you never turn them on again, because they're ugly, because they're glare. And, that's what glare is. So really, you can have a beautiful designed landscape lighting job. If you have even one fixture glaring the homeowner, or two, that's what they're going to remember. That's what their guests are going to notice. They're not going to realize how gorgeous the rest of the property is, because their eyes are always going to be focused on that glaring fixture.
So this is a really important point, Matt, what you just said. And I don't think you needed to emphasize it more. Because when you're out there doing either a mock-up, a demo, a real job, and that homeowner, which I'm going to say 99% of every homeowner in the United States has a porch light, and you see the light bulb. Now, when you can see the light bulb in the daytime when you're talking to that client, if you can see the light bulb in the daytime, you're going to see the light bulb at night. So now you're out there at night, and you just said you got those glare bombs staring in the face. You have to take the homeowners, and they have to tell them, put your thumb up, block out that light bulb, because they're not concentrating on your beautiful landscape lighting job right now. They're concentrating through their eyes that it's glary. So you have to shut those light fixtures off, or put your thumb up and block them out with your thumb. You don't want them being distracted by blinding glare or discomforting glare. So yeah, it's very, very, very important.
That's a great definition of glare, on a 120 volt side to avoid. There's also a lot of glare just in low voltage lights and bad design, or a fixture that isn't meant to block glare. So I think at the end of this, we'll kind of come up with some actionable steps that you can do to avoid glare. Let's further define more what glare is on a landscape job. I would say even hot spots, are a form of glare as well. I got some pictures actually.
Yeah. So Matt has said blinding. I think you said blinding glare, Matt. What did you say? You say direct glare?
I don't know the exact terms I use, but we can review the video later and find out.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you said either, but it was either direct glare, right? So I'll just say it was direct glare. Shane, you said hot spots. I'm going to say there's blinding glare, right? Which is, to me, would be probably the same as a hot spot or direct glare. There's nuisance glare. There's distracting glare, right? There's incident glare, right? So there's a lot of forms of glare, and a lot of those forms will have, right, a different intensity level, but they're all going to be bad, right? So, yeah, you got some photos of glare?
I do. Well, before this call, I spent about 30 seconds and found some photos. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I found a couple and put here in a Drive folder. This one, funny enough, I know who did this install.
Some dipshit, I'm sure.
Some guy that probably didn't pay attention.
But I was looking at these pictures. I was like, that is the epitome of glare. Now, this was unintentional glare. Like no one really knew that that would cause glare at the bottom of the stairs looking up. Sometimes you get glare unintentionally reflecting off of water or at different elevation, but there is ways to prevent this, and you have to be aware of it.
So I would tell you, I would take this as, for me, knowing that what I know today, not 30 years ago, to me, this is knowing glare. I'm going to be very aware of elevation change. One of the things that causes direct glare is from elevation change, especially when you have steps. So, I don't know if that's typical steps are 6 inches up. So, there was 15, 20 risers. So that's probably 7 or 8 difference in elevation. Yeah. And in the daytime, I guarantee you, whoever that installer was, he probably was looking directly at the lens / light bulb. Should have known that there was glare. But now that you've shown that photo, how do we deal with that? What do we do? We're going to have to minimize the glare.
I say unknowingly because I'm sure that installer didn't put that there knowing there would be glare. However, a seasoned
you did say you were a dipshit at the beginning,
yourself, right? So yes, that was by a fellow dipshit installer. An easy mistake to do. So how would you fix it if you're asking, me, Nate? Well, I know there's glare guards that you can put. That'll just block that glare from only this angle, still provide the downlighting, but block the glare. It's a little blackout that you put on 25% of the little glass there. That's how I would.
I'd like to.
You guys?
Yeah, I think I'll also point out in this photo, right? It's actually it's probably one of the easiest ways to describe glare, because that glare that you see is the same fixtures that you see leading up to it, right? So you can see what they should look like in that. I mean, that just is
right.
Obvious glare. So if you're ever wondering what glare is, this is a great image to understand it. But yeah, there's the blinders for sure. Makes it really super easy for path lights to, I'll use those blinders not just on stairs like this, but I use them a lot around hot tubs because no one wants the light right in their eyes when they're sitting in the hot tub.
Right. So prior to coming up with the blinder, right, which is a really cool PVC thing that slides over the light bulb. So prior to coming up with the blinder, we would use black electrical tape or a liquid metal pen, and we would, obviously cover the lens up with one of those devices to block out glare. But that was always a pain in the ass, and so the blinder certainly is the trick to use, though. But yeah, this is a good representation. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 lights there. One light out of placement ruined your whole job. Because whoever did this obviously did a pretty good job on lighting the steps. Very safe, easy to navigate. Clearly see the landings, top and bottom. Clearly have no really just annoying glare or shadowing that would confuse the eye. So one fixture out of place, ruined the job.
Yep. I mean, they also probably took the time to put this river rock in here so a fixture isn't in the middle of the grass. So I like that. That way, landscapers won't mess it all up, which say 100% would. So good. Yeah. Good job for creating that. I've got another picture. Can I show you guys?
Absolutely.
So this is a job that I just did like last week, and I came across it. This was a picture that the customer sent me. I asked her to send me a picture at night the day before we went, just so I can have a good before.
Hey, Shane, is it real quick? Can you zoom in at all on your screen?
Yeah, I think so. Does that work?
Yeah,
that's better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So now this install, just to kind of preface it with this, like, I don't know, it doesn't look bad. If you ask Nate, it's probably a 1 out of a 10. But I like to preface this with any light looks better than no light. And it's easy to critique another installer's jobs. I don't know why they did what they did. Maybe there's budget concerns. Maybe the landscape changed. But they did irrefutably break some rules that we follow that are unforgivable. And for that reason, they're going to get bashed a little bit. So this was done by a national franchise. If I said the name, you guys would know the franchise. I would have thought they would teach their folks better than they did. So, one thing, this actually is a landscape light in a tree. It's supposed to cast light on this section of the driveway. It is horrible placement. It's just glare all over the place. Even this downlight could be better. This one right there, you got the porch lights, which I told the customer to remove. I even unscrewed the bulbs for them after we got done with this job. I told them if they're going to put a bulb in, put a fire flicker little bulb if they wanted something in there. And then this tree, super hot, spotty. You can't even tell the house. There's no texture being revealed. The lights are just front lighting everything. Just all around, like this was not a great job. Even though some folks might look at it and be proud of it, I think once you know a little bit of design and you've gone through something like the lighting trade school, you would realize this is just crap. I don't know. What are y'all's comments that you first notice on this? And I'll give you the after picture here too, as soon as we're done chatting about it.
Well, Nate, let me jump in because I know you're gonna have a lot longer explanation of what's wrong. I'll just say the first thing I notice is the tree. So you're taken away from, the person's castle, as I like to say, right? So the first thing my eye is drawn to in this photo is that tree. Next, it's in the upper tree for the driveway light on the right hand of the screen. And then from there, it's the doorway. So there's no visual direction, and it looks like the tree is the entire focal point of the person's front of house. And
Well, I think you guys did a really good job of explaining it, so I don't have to be long here in my deal, and I'm really going to just recap what you said is. And so, one of the biggest issues with a hotspot change word, right? That's what he says the number one thing for glare is for creation of a hotspot. So when you have bad placement, which we have, I'm going to say there's a minimum of probably 6 fixtures here that are bad placement. Every one of them is a hotspot. It's its own visual cue, if you will. And that leads my eye. Nothing I can do about it. A hotspot will act. It's a magnet to your eye. Your eye is always drawn to the hotspot, even though you don't want to, and it's glary. So it takes away from everything. So those hot spots draw your vision, right? Takes away from, even if it was a decent, maybe looking landscape lighting job, it still takes it away. It's a lousy landscape lighting job, but the point is, a hot spot will negatively draw your attention to it. So it's just all really bad placement. I mean, I'm not there to look at the fixtures to see, maybe there's a lot of fixtures that don't do anything, which is another. Obviously, we're going to get into how do we combat glare, and so forth, besides placement, right? So I have a rule when it comes to placements in trees. Trees provide a lot of glare issues, right? Because trees are high. Obviously, getting back to elevation, like those steps, you might put a tree like 15, 20 feet up in the air, and then you might put it at a very severe angle like this. So when you have... So you can see that if I was in a downlight position, you can see that there is zero glare, even though there's a massive amount of light coming out of this flashlight. I think it was $16 at Costco. I love these fucking flashlights.
No one sees the flashlight.
Huh? So anyway, so you can see that in a downlight position in a tree, which will be my favorite type of position generally, because there's no glare, right? And this doesn't even really have a glare shield on it. You can see there's no glare. So when you start kicking it up, you can see that the massive amount of glare here now, right? So typically you always want to have a light that would have a shroud on it. So now I would block that glare. And then typically the angle of the shroud would be parallel to the ground, right? That's the maximum degree that you're going to go, which is about 30%. People have a tendency to really do this, right? Instead of keeping it down parallel to the ground, the angle of the shroud. So so the fixtures that, I have and use, obviously they have a set predetermined angle for the shroud. So when you're putting them in a moonlight position, you have zero glare. So it's positioning, picking out the correct, photo, things like that. So there really is an art and science when it comes to tree lighting, and there's nothing better than trees. Trees are beautiful. They're magnificent. They're one of the most coolest things ever, especially with the variety of trees out there. But
all right, Shane, let's see how you fixed it.
Yeah, I will. Funny. 5 minutes ago, you said, "Well, I don't have much to say on this." 5 minutes later, I'll preface it too on how we got this job and kind of what we charge and what we said. But let's go to the after picture here. Well, before you look at the after picture, we took this light and we uplight first. We backlit this. We redid the lights all along the front of the house. We added some to these crepe myrtles that you can't even see in the picture. And this is what it looked like the next day. I think I got the right picture here. So there's both of these. So I'm going to go with this picture, probably closer to a better before and after. This, again, the customer gave me. I did not take these pictures. I wish I probably would have taken them, a little more better for comparison. But you can see this tree is no longer lit. It's backlit, canopy's lit, it's silhouetted, it looks better. This tree over here now has uplights on it and one downlight. These trees are a little more silhouetted. These trees right here are also backlit. So they're front lit from the angle of the door, show depth to the yard, but from the street, they're backlit. And then we got these. Now on the house, so there was one light in the middle of every window, just front lighting the whole house. So we added a light on each side of the window. We added a light on each side of the columns. Well, how'd we do that? Well, they have pots here. So we just put the lights in pots, ran a copper conduit, looks super bitchin'. And then the house itself, now we've got texture revealed. We're not hot spotting it. I know the phone kind of makes it seem a little hot spotty, but I promise you it wasn't. And I think it looks a million times better. We only replaced the lights on the house and just repositioned the other fixtures to get this. If I could have redone the whole job, I would have. The reason we got the job is the franchise went out of business in San Antonio, and the local closest franchise was in Austin. Well, they came and told this lady 5 years after installed that they'd have to rip everything out and start over again. She's like, well, what about my warranty? What about anything? Like the lights, some of the lights weren't working. She was really upset to hear that the answer was just, well, you just got to spend 15 grand and do it all over again. She didn't want to do that. So we replaced all the lights on the front of the house. We took some of the fixtures in her yard and repurposed them elsewhere. And we charged her about $5 grand. So she was super happy. We did it in a day with 2 guys. We were happy. Everyone wins. So, Matt, I'll go to you if you had something to add, because I know Nate's 10 seconds is going to turn into.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, okay. So that tree is now no longer the focal point, which I love. Would love for you to go back and take a same exact angle as that first picture, because I know how different it'll look in that same angle. No, but right now is like I say, the castle is the castle, right? Your front yard, it is lit. So when you're arriving home and you're working your ass off all day to pay for this house, now you get to come home and see the house rather than the tree. Trees are beautiful, but they're not the focal point to take away from when you're arriving back home at night.
Okay, well, I mean, you guys said it all. I don't need to make any more comments on the before and the after, the good, bad, and the ugly of the photo. You guys did a great job explaining that. I want to just reinforce one thing that I think it's super important that on these podcasts, even though this is our first one, that we interject things when you give a tidbit of information, which was the guy from Austin that came out and rip it all out. And you're able to repurpose things. So this happened to me last week about repurposing. So I have a $29 wiring harness that goes into my gate motors on my gate by LiftMaster. They decided not to, and it's at 12 years old. They decided to get rid of that model, and they want me to pay $8,500 to buy a whole new system because they decided to not be able to have replacement parts, a $29 wiring harness. So I told that guy to go F off. I will never buy anything from that product company again. Right. So repurposing should always be a thought about is how can we repurpose? Should we be buying product that can be repurposed? Should we be buying, everything that has future considerations and knowing that there's a lot of things that could go wrong in an outdoor lighting job. So my comment on repurposing, which I think is really important, is, you have to make sure that, Shane, obviously you can, jump in when I'm done about what are you warranting on a repurposed system? Did you redo the wire nut connections? Did you put new wire in it? Did you go back and put dielectric grease on things, making sure that everything would live right a lot longer so you're not coming back with nuisance troubleshooting calls if you didn't go through it properly.
Yep, it is pretty careful because I don't want to fix someone's system and technically take ownership of their system. So if something goes wrong, they're calling me back because I was the last one to touch it. So I am careful with that. And that is why we put on one lead out of a new power supply. We upgraded everything to a 24-volt system versus the previous 12-volt. So on one lead was all new wire for the front of the house, all new fixtures.
Super smart.
Now, some areas we replaced wire. And then, the backyard we left on her old transformer as well. So the backyard's still 12-volt. So if we were to go back, we can, this is ours. This is our new fixture. This was yours. We explained to her we did not retrench all new wire out to her trees, and you may have issues. That was one of the other cardinal sins this company broke, was they used wire nuts. Can you believe a franchise is still out there using wire nuts and electrical tape? Oh my gosh. So some of the connections we took off were just corroded. They were bad. Instead of 62 strands of copper, there was like 4. And some of the lights weren't working with that. So we replaced all new lamps because we upgraded it to 24-volt and replaced some wire and redid all the connections. But that was just one sin I can't get past. And that's going to be in another episode. But they just really did this customer wrong. They could have spent $30 extra on some grease tubes, and her system would still be more healthy than it is.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's a shame when you're hiring a professional out there again, and they don't have the basic 7 deadly sins, the basics of what they should do correctly. So anyway, so going back to glare, so we have blinding glare, we have this a hot spot glare, we have distracting glare. What about nuisance glare? Okay, one of the things that happens all the time is nuisance glare. Like, for example,
that's when Nate plays with his flashlights all the time.
That's definitely a nuisance. So I think you can see that if I open up this curtain right here, you can see.
Yeah, it's hard to look at.
It's hard to look at, and that's nuisance glare because that's the sun just reacting with a highly polished window, so it produces nuisance glare, which can come from a highly polished granite countertop on an outdoor barbecue area. It could come from a highly polished flooring, right? So you've got to be really, careful when that light is hitting, right? It could even be secondary light coming off after reflected value, like ambient light. What's the surface is it hitting? Nuisance glare can be blinding too and distracting. So that's a big thing that we got to always be careful about. How is the light going to react with that surface? Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, now we've identified glare. Just maybe we'll end this with ways to completely eliminate it. I think everything kind of goes back to the fixture. So when you're shopping for fixtures, well, you need to have a shroud. So shroud, hex louver that moves. What are some other ways that anyone that's listening can make sure to avoid glare?
So I think that obviously the number one thing that you have to have is you have to establish where views are from, because a lot of times placement, even with a proper shroud or a proper hex louver, right? If you don't understand where the view is from, which could be elevation, like that step that you had, right? So you have to understand the placement of it. Are there multiple viewpoints as you navigate around the property, right? So you have to take that in consideration. Where's the fixture going to be and how is it viewed from? And then, of course, like you just said, is the shroud adjustable, right? Is it easy to adjust? A lot of shrouds are extremely difficult to adjust. So you have to make sure that you adjust it properly. Does it have a hex louver that can maybe rotate? And it's a really shame that I think 99% of the fixtures out there don't even have a hex louver that can minimize the glare. And then can it aim? So, one of the things about outdoor lighting is you have to be able to have finite precision aiming. Well, if you can't aim it properly, it can cause glare. So, if you go back to that photo, obviously, maybe that guy didn't have a very good fixture and he couldn't aim it properly, which then disallowed him from having proper placement. So it has to be able to aim. Then and then how do you minimize some of the things? Frosted lenses, right? One of the misconceptions of how to minimize glare is reducing the wattage of the light bulb. It's just such a big misnomer. It's not even funny. You can have a 1 watt light bulb and in bad placement, direct blinding glare, it's going to blind you. So it's not a smaller light bulb per se. But yeah, I think those were the key things.
Awesome.
All
I'd
right.
like to point out you real quick about the viewing angles is, knowing that there might be 2 or 3 viewing angles, that's where you want to prevent glare, right? If you go stand in the back corner of the yard and see some glare, no one's ever back there. It's not a viewing angle. So you take your priority viewing angles and make sure they don't have glare. Just don't want, if we do a moonlight and you go stand under it and look straight up into it, guess what? It's going to glare. So just when we say eliminate glare, it's not truly eliminating all glare, no matter where you are on the property. It's the places that matter. So just a little tidbit out there. People are there's no way the only way to block all glare is to not have any lights.
Well, so let me expand a little bit about that, because I want to make sure everybody understands the horror of what you said. So getting back to multiple viewing angles, like you said, 2 or 3. So viewing angles, the sight lines, right, directly 100% dictate how many fixtures it's going to take. So if you were lighting up a tree and there was one view, maybe it would take 1 or 2 lights. But if you were lighting up a tree and there was elevation change from an upstairs master bedroom balcony, down the street, up the street, front door, across the street, maybe you got 5 viewing angles. So that's now going to go from a 2 light job maybe to a 6 or 7 or 8 light job, because by reducing glare from certain angles automatically makes you add fixtures. So one of the biggest things is people they don't take that into consideration, because they think automatically no one wants 7 or 8 fixtures on their trees. So they say F it, and then they deal with the glare. We don't do that. We won't teach guys to do that. So now getting to the point to where, obviously, if you're staring up under a tree, there's going to be glare. So you're going to have some nuisance glare as you navigate around a property. But when you take into consideration that quantity of fixtures is dictated by the viewing angles, you'll never really have blinding or direct glare or hotspots. You're going to have very minimum nuisance glare as you navigate through that fixture. And there are tricks that we can eliminate all glare, and that's what I will tell you, all glare, through a lot of different ways that we can. Probably hard to show it on the podcast, but I will share a little trick with you. And this came from when we did a lot of moonlighting in the day. We all know that you can buy this anti-slip tape that everybody uses for a boat trailer. It's made by 3M. It's adhered to the boat trailer. It's got like sandpaper grip to it. And you could cut that. You could extend a shroud, if you will, and you can really block glare out. Glare is absolutely the number one killer. And if Matt is right, which he is, that sometimes you are going to not be able to deal with it. But you got to have a trick or 2 up your sleeve to get rid of the glare, because you can't present yourself as a stud lighting guy and tell the client, well, that's just the way fucking every way it is. You're just going to have to deal with that. Nothing I can do. That's not a good excuse. So anyway, yeah, glare, number 1 killer.
All right. Well, stick around. Listen to podcast number 2 if you want to hear more tricks. If you dare to avoid the glare, go to thelightingtradeschool.com. You can download our 7 Deadly Sins PDF. It's 100% for free. Matt and I will put this in our proposals and show a customer, so customers see, hey, these guys have a plan. They've got rules that they follow by, and it just it elevates you to a higher status when you're doing proposals. So if you want that PDF to include with your proposals, go to thelightingtradeschool.com. Click download proposal, and we'll give it to you for free. So join us on our next one as we go to sin number 2.
Hey, real quick, don't have your jobs turn into a light mirror.
That's a good one. Don't be a light mirror.
All right. Lightingtradeschool.com for that. I just say it's no the in front of it. Lightingtradeschool.com. All right, boys. It's been great. Fellow dipshits. I'll talk to you guys later.
Are we done? Are we hanging up?
Well,
hold on, Nate.
You'd stop talking.
Oh, that was for the.
You just got to be silent and stare.